Hello, everyone attending this meeting, both virtual and in present in the lecture room next to where I am sitting. My name is Dr. Anders Richa. I'm a lecturer in Arts and Cultural Industries Management at Queen's University Belfast, and I have the honor of hosting our AMCP, that is Art Management and Cultural Policy seminar today with Dr. Alice Demattos Guimarães. So Alice Demattos Guimarães is a cultural economist from Brazil. She holds a PhD in responsible innovation and regional development. Originally from Minas Gerais and Belo Horizonte in Brazil, she has a master's degree in global markets and local creativity from the Erasmus Mundus joint master between Glasgow, Barcelona, and Rotterdam. Her doctoral research was conducted as the international research project on crowdfunding in the cultural sector Crowdfunding, which was funded by the Norwegian Research Grants Council. And her doctoral dissertation with the title The Equilibrist Hope deals with the perspective and prospective of cultural creative crowdfunding in a variety of contexts. Alice today works as a researcher and lecturer at the Western Norway University of Applied Sciences Business School, Sector of Innovation Studies. And she mainly does research in the areas of cultural and artistic practices and local development and cultural policy, management, alternative finances, other economies, and evidently crowdfunding. So the topic of today's talk will be digitalization and value co-creation, but through the use of crowdfunding as a fundraising mechanism. Alice will in her talk introduce the use of crowdfunding in the specific context of Latin America. And she will explain how arts and cultural organizations work with crowdfunding and digital patronage through a case which is very interesting of the Formation and Transformation Orchestra, Évoe, located in Belo Horizonte. Their mission is to give young undergraduate classical musicians an opportunity to perform together as part of an orchestra in a professional setting. Before I give the words and the screen to Alice for her to start her presentation, just a few notes about housekeeping and rules. We encourage questions for Alice, and we encourage dialogue with Alice after her presentation. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will return to them once Alice has finished her presentation and use the final part of this seminar to address those in a conversation. Before that, I am very, very excited about listening to Alice and what she will share with us in terms of her research into crowdfunding in Latin America and Brazil. So please, Alice, the microphone and the screen and the camera is yours.
Thank you very much, Anders. I will share my screen now. Hope it works. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. So Anders already introduced very well the topic of today's lecture. And I really want to start this by thank you, Anders, and of course, thanking all the teams from Queen's University and the Masters in Art Management. It's a pleasure to be here and to share a little bit about crowdfunding in Latin America, particularly in Brazil, through the case of Évoe. And I know that I have some of the core Évoe members here today, so it's a pleasure to have them as well. And I hope they will correct me if I say something that they disagree, or of course share even more insights into this amazing project. So to start the presentation, I don't need to introduce myself. Anders did this. Thank you again. What I'm going to do today is I will start with a contextualization of my research and this story of crowdfunding. And then I'll present a little bit of theory, but bear with me, it's going to be short. And then we are going to immerse ourselves in the case of Évoe. And then we can see some insights from the case and also from the broader perspective of crowdfunding in Latin America, and then some final considerations. So contextualizing a little bit. I always start this crowdfunding research with this storytelling, because, well, we all know that arts and culture is very diverse, it's full of different fronts and people working in industries. So, and even philosophical questions of what is art. And I depart from the principle that everything can be art and culture is everywhere. But we have one common thing, that is the life struggle of getting funding and finance. And by this, I mean not only scarce resources in terms of private sponsorship or sustainability of a cultural enterprise, but also, of course, public funding and how to get access to public funding. Anyways, all the challenge that cultural institutions and cultural associations and artists face when it comes to finance. And then we have the digitalization and platformization phenomena that is everywhere in the world nowadays. And this came very strong, and some very, well, innovative, if you may say, artists, musicians to be precise, came with the idea of a crowdfunding platform. So the first crowdfunding platform was actually created by artists. The name was Artist Share, and it was this idea of aligning the struggle of getting funding with the advantage of digitalization and platformization. But if we think in the definition of crowdfunding, meaning that is the opportunity or the possibility of getting small amounts of money from a potentially large crowd, this is not really new to artists, right? Because, I mean, traditional arts practice involves patronage and busking and so on. So the main novel element here is the platform itself. So it's this online space where people go fund the projects. And some scholars have claimed, though, that within the crowdfunding, there is a big tension between art and commerce, meaning that crowdfunding platforms can seem very much commercial in the sense of you put your product there to be sold, and this can sometimes clash with their artistic values and artistic missions. So what I did in my PhD research, which had this story as the background, was to investigate and explore how cultural creative crowdfunding, and here in my slides I have the short term as CCCF or triple CF, can be a responsible innovation within the cultural sector. I'm not going to go into the details of what responsible innovation is in terms of theoretical debate, but the main point is that the research question guiding my work was how can we comprehend crowdfunding in the specific case of the cultural sector, so the triple CF, as a tool of co-creation and innovation for the diverse cultural sector. So my thesis has actually a more theoretical endeavor in terms of development theories and working with the concepts, but with this idea of having the practical implication of offering typologies of practice of crowdfunding. So the many ways that crowdfunding can be used and is being used in the arts and cultural sector more generally. So let's go a little bit with theory in the sense of understanding more crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is under the umbrella of alternative finance, and following the principles of crowdsourcing adapted to the context of fundraising, crowdfunding can be understood as a collective effort to invest in and support projects that people believe in. So this is our, in a nutshell, that crowdfunding is defined as a co-thinking of community enabling finance, also surfing the wave of digitalization and platformization, as I just explained. But there are different models within crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is actually divided in two main logics, investment and non-investment. Within investment, we have equity and lending, and non-investment, we have the models of donation and reward-based. Those second two are the most used in cultural and creative industries or in cultural sector in general. So the equity and lending are not very much there yet, and there are several reasons for that. I'm not going to go into this. But then when I'm talking about crowdfunding here, I am mostly focused on donation and reward because it's the main used or the most common in cultural sector. Anyhow, it's important to understand that even though there are those different models, crowdfunding as this broad mechanism involves much more than the monetary benefit. So it goes beyond the fundraising. It has several benefits that are market related. So you can test a product, you can proof of concept, create a demand. So you have all these aspects that you can do within the platform. And you have, of course, the more intangible aspect of the community building and engagement and this idea of putting collective mobilization to make something become a reality. So thinking especially on this second side of the more community engagement aspect is where we want to focus here today. But we have to go back, though, to the tension of crowdfunding, right? Because, I mean, art and commerce has always been with this tension. It's not restricted to crowdfunding. The fact that you have to go to a platform, it makes more visible or tangible that we have this tension. But it has always been there. And some discussions have been gone through this identity conflict. So the fact that artists not always see themselves as entrepreneurs, and crowdfunding being this entrepreneurial finance makes that artists want to distance themselves because they don't want to approach this side of commercialization. So we have to question this and think which kind of entrepreneurship we are talking here. And of course, this discussion is really more complex than time allows us to go in depth to. But the main idea is that if we think that any cultural enterprise is about creating value, and creating value in the sense of the diverse values that we have, not only economic, but social and cultural, how can we then explore the practice of crowdfunding to serve the cultural sector? Or how can the cultural sector take agency in framing the crowdfunding in the way that is going to be beneficial for them? So there is definitely a puzzle within the cultural crowdfunding, cultural creative crowdfunding, which there are several questions here. So is there a lack of expanded comprehension? And there is a need of mindset shift, in the sense of, do artists need a little bit more of like this entrepreneurial side? So yeah, how can we navigate there? And there is the fact I was talking about, the agency of the cultural sector. Is the cultural sector exploring all the possibilities within crowdfunding, all the different models, the channels? Is there something being overseen or underutilized? Is there a lack of classification? And further, is there a need of a clear distinction of platforms that are actually for the cultural and creative projects, and more generalized platforms where you're going to see like more donation based for GoFundMe, for instance, where you have more aid and philanthropic actions of helping individuals even. So do we need this division clear? So those questions made me think of the role of platforms, because of course, when we are thinking of all those questions, one of the main actors here is the platforms. So I'm not going to go into the details of the research design, although I have that graphic here. The point is that we conducted a mapping of platforms in Europe and in Latin America with the intention of seeking for geographical differences or geographical explanations or nuances that could inform us about these platforms and about the action and the mission of the platforms, or the different way that they interact. And it's quite interesting, again, not going into the details of this figure, but this was part of one of my PhD papers. We collected 89 platforms focused on cultural and creative projects only. So we selected only platforms that were specialized. And it's very fascinating that we found in Europe 79 valid platforms against 10 in Latin America. And of course, this is due to many reasons, like lack of data, the difficulty of accessing centralized data that Europe has more elaborated, like crowdfunding portals that you can go and see. So Latin America required a little bit more of an effort. And at the end, it was only few that came to my knowledge. But those fews were, in my personal view, stronger than the ones that we were seeing in Europe, in the sense that they were full of possibilities of how to do the crowdfunding, of how to interact with the community. And this was very unique, and it was more suitable for Latin America context and for the cultural sector context in general, because we know that artists are struggling everywhere in terms of how the labor conditions, people have second jobs and so on. So the platforms in Latin America, they seem more flexible, adaptable, and also more concerned with the development of the cultural sector in the region than the ones in Europe. But I mean, this is a personal view, and it can be discussed. I want to see or to present how Évoe, our case here today, took advantage of digital funding and digital finance to expand the institution. So as Anders already presented, Évoe is this amazing project that offer young undergrads in music the opportunity to perform together as part of a big orchestra in a professional setting of excellence. And usually those youth, they are from more marginalized socioeconomic context. So it's also this idea of breaking barriers. And before going more into the case, I want to give the words to the musicians. So I will play this teaser of a documentary that Évoe did about the project in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see if it works. I'll put the subtitles. Is it working?
Eu quero sim conquistar o meu espaço. Eu quero ser capaz de viver da arte que eu faço. Mas eu também quero ser um potencializador de sonhos. Eu acredito que a arte tem esse poder.
Em vários momentos da minha vida que eu falei assim, não tem solução, o fagote estava ali, sabe? Tava ali do lado falando assim, olha, pode não ter ninguém, pode não ter nada, mas eu tô aqui. Então eu pegava o fagote e tocava.
E falando especificamente da Évoe, eu acredito que é um movimento que permeia o tecido social, que aí a gente vai falar do outro impacto, né? Que é, enquanto eu tenho esse indivíduo tendo a possibilidade de se envolver com a música, tocar aspectos sensíveis, né, do indivíduo, dar a ele uma possibilidade de pensar a sua própria existência em outros termos. A Évoe, eu vejo com essa nobreza, né, de a partir do fio condutor da música, viabilizar e dar esperança, e dando esperança para outras pessoas. Ele é um ciclo virtuoso, né? Onde você praticamente resgata alguém que vai produzir uma música capaz de resgatar outras pessoas.
So that's Évoe, and is a project from the city of Belo Horizonte in Minas Gerais, Brazil. I don't know if all you know where it's located, but it's this beautiful place. I'm biased. I'm born and raised there. And Évoe has, I will mention this probably later as well, but Évoe has a lot of connection with the State Philharmonic. And yeah, they collaborate a lot. But yeah, this is just to locate this beautiful project that we're going to talk about. And now we're going to see a little bit of the timeline of Évoe. I'm not going to go into the seed of the idea of Évoe, but in 2019, it was born the Voluntary Orchestra of Belo Horizonte, and they had their first concert in December. And then in 2022, they became Orchestra of Formation and Transformation. And but I want to first say two things that are worth mentioning. The concert, all the tickets, the revenue of the tickets were shared among all the musicians who participate. And also Évoe, so the shortening of Orquestra Voluntária de Belo Horizonte, means egg. And the Évoe team is pretty great with doing egg analogies, as you're going to see a little bit here. So it's important to have this in mind. And then they became Orquestra de Formação e Transformação, especially because they have a core component that is the education part. So they really want to have the young musicians being trained in our excellence, orchestra of excellence. And because of this pillar of the education, it was born the NGO NEC, Citizen Education Center, which is now the, let's say, the mother institution where Évoe is part from, which has this education part very much as the core, and Évoe is the main channel to do that. So this is how they are structured in a very brief and simple way, but that's their trajectory. And of course, there were many other concerts that came along. And again, the Philharmonic musicians serve as mentors for the participants. So they play together, they have training together, and so on and so forth. Still, we need to ask ourselves, how have Évoe fund themselves? How was the funding path that they chose to do? And then we come to this new slide where I tell you that they did a crowdfunding, but they didn't do a one-off project in crowdfunding. They actually decided to go to a subscription channel, meaning that they rely on a monthly subscription, and they use the crowdfunding platform. I mean, there was some changes, but I'm just getting to the main point. They use the main crowdfunding platform, Évoe, is a crowdfunding also from the same city as Évoe, and they did the monthly. And Évoe is a platform that allows both one-off projects and also the subscription. So a new difference from a lot of platforms that we see in Europe. How in Brazil, particularly, a lot of creative platforms are allowing those different formats. So you can do subscription-based crowdfunding on normal crowdfunding platforms. So Évoe has this main motto that grain by grain, the chicken feels its crop. So this is stated in their social media, and that's in a nutshell what crowdfunding is about. So they really got this in their core, and they made this creating the granja, another egg analogy, which means granja from in Portuguese, it means farm or grange. So in this granja, they have 3 options. So of course, as more you donate, more you receive. I don't have the values here. I don't think it's necessary, but in short, every time having an egg joke, they have the benefit, the most simple. It would be like around $10 a month. They have exclusive videos and paid tickets to watch the concert. So this idea of how the experience of the concert is really important, not only the digital space, but the physical presence of going and leaving a concert. And then a lucky number to compete for a dinner with the conductor. And then in the next level, on top of the other ones, you have the access to an exclusive lecture about the concert, the instruments, composers, musicians, and so on. And then in the next level, again, you have the previous ones, but then you have more numbers to compete for this dinner. You have access to the lecture again, and then you can even watch a rehearsal and then talk with musicians and conductor and all the participants. And this proves, I think, 2 main things. One, they really highlight the importance of the experience, the physical experience and intangible access to what Évoe has to offer, in the sense that the digital space has to go beyond the digital sphere with those dinners, the concert itself, of course, the making of as well. It's about creating proximity. So Évoe really understands that artists need the proximity with audience, and the digital space can actually offer that and facilitate that, even though at the end you need also the experience, because we are talking about experience economy here. Our orchestra is not going to be the same in a video, so being in a concert is amazing, but also having these individual dinners, not individuals, it's a group, but like one-to-one in the sense that you get to know the making of and what is going on in those behind these brilliant minds. And the education part, because all these lectures about the concert, lectures about composers, and they are super active in their Instagram page, and they educate in the sense that they share the knowledge. So they co-create knowledge, they share what they know about music history, and they create their audience, or they train audience. So they really work on having music enthusiasts around them. So this community building in the sense of building a shared passion as well, a shared knowledge that you are completely devoted to. So this is a big part of what they do. And it's important to say here as well that now they are even expanding this further. It's a very new project just released, but they are going to do, let's say, the corporative granja. So they are going to have 3 packages as well, but for companies to have direct sponsorship. So a kind of corporative crowdfunding, which I'm very excited to see how it's going to turn up. I'm pretty sure that is going to be great, but it's very much how they understand that this feeding on this community can help, and also amplifying the portfolio of finance using these digital mechanisms. But let's talk more about these numbers in terms of how they distribute what they receive with the monthly subscription revenue. So they have, of course, 50% goes to educational activity. As I mentioned, sometimes now education is core for what they are doing. And then they have 12% that goes to the platform fees, sorry. And they have 30% of fixed costs and management in general. And they have 80% to commissioning projects for public calls. So yeah, Brazilian cultural policy is another scene to navigate. It's very fascinating, the different laws that we have. So I'm not going to go into the details, but it's important to highlight how Évoe, by using crowdfunding, they are actually creating revenue to access other fundings. So how this snowball of funding works, starting first with this digital sphere. I will go back to more insights on Évoe's case, but I want to first point out some general insights. So digitalization transforms the cultural sector. That's a fact. And it does offer new possibilities. We just need to understand how it can best serve us and how can we explore them. And in crowdfunding, there are a lot of democratic aspects. So the democratization of finance, the democratization of access to funds for projects that couldn't be able to get public fund, for instance. And there is, of course, this community, the not only the sense of community, but also the building of community and expanding community. And I have to mention again that Évoe is also doing a great project now, which is Granja Indicates. So everyone who is donating, the individual that is doing the monthly subscription, now they are going to ask them to indicate 5 friends. And then after indicating 5 friends, if they manage in the timeline that they have, they will automatically go for the dinner with the conductor. So they are creating mechanisms not only in the month subscription, but that you expand your community. And this is pretty unique. And I mean, and somehow they started this by seeing the crowdfunding community and how this grows and expands, and how you can really rely on a crowd or a collective belief that you can make a project exist and continue to exist. However, there are complex dualities there. Even though we say that is democratic, we have to remember that some scholars are saying that there is not only fun labor, but also fun money is being shamelessly exploited. So this idea of like how much work is actually to do crowdfunding. So this idea of free work, and what is this in the context of Latin America, when you are asking people for money. So is the region of inequalities, how this can play a role. So we do have a lot of issues that have to be addressed, have to be acknowledged. But if we think in a more bright side, and I choose to do that, when you emphasize this democratic aspect and this sense that digital space offer proximity between the creators and the consumers, and those consumers are actually the end users and the ones that are experienced the most. So when you emphasize this collaborative nature, you can, and seeing crowdfunding as community enabling financing, you can reach this idea of the co-creation of values, of co-producing realities, of going beyond fundraising. You are making dreams happen and constructing different futures. And especially in the case of Évoe, and again, that's why it's so unique. Évoe is an orchestra, it's like core art in the sense of, like, if you think of elitist art, orchestra used to be there. And this is changing. And when Évoe comes to crowdfunding, that a lot of times we see the critique that in crowdfunding there is no real art, or serious project cannot be in crowdfunding. Évoe proves that a project of artistic excellence can be in a crowdfunding platform and can do much more in a crowdfunding platforms than some other projects that are just there as a commercial pre-selling, because they are immersed in a context. They are aware of the context that they are formed. So the artistic excellence is creating value in a specific context. And that's the beauty of it. How you can make this co-creation, because then you involve the community. So co-creation values in the places of, in the specific context, places of need, or just expanding and transforming socioeconomic realities. And I think this discussion, of course, is quite deep, and we can keep going on and on here because there are a lot to be saying. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. But I want to just illustrate again big pictures with all the theoretical concepts. I'm not going into there. But the main thing that I would like this picture to show or to illustrate is that at the intersection of digitalization and alternative finance, co-production and co-creation are happening. And Évoe is expanding all its financial portfolio according to this. And in other words, the Granja, the digital community that Évoe constructed, was what made them starting to upscale, and they reach a formal level. Évoe really constructed NEC, which is a NGO, and now they are thinking broader and broader with this Granja for companies, and how the companies can do the direct investment. And I mean, and it's still making some sort of crowdfunding, but in a bigger scale. After all, when a company donates, they can donate more than individuals, right? So this idea of, yeah, of course, like when I'm talking here of co-creation, I know, I acknowledge that's rather a theoretical, analytical tool than a practice for the creators. So the creators and consumers are not like, oh, we are co-creating here. But it's this idea that the engagement and this construction and the proximity and exchanges, and Évoe does that all the time with the lectures, with the talks after and before the concerts, with the dinners. So they make the backers, so the supporters of the project, really being part of it and being part of the project. And this enables that the people who are there supporting the project, they feel that they can develop in the project a little bit. And I think it's very nice for instance, some of Évoe's patrons, they actually sponsor scholarships to send participants, the musicians, to exchange. So they told me recently that they have musicians going to the music conservatory of Évoe Academy. And this was sponsored by people who are part of the Granja. And yeah, they reach quite a lot, and in doing so, they managed to even go broader than crowdfunding in the strict sense of using a platform. They are now doing this by themselves and transforming it and using it in their favor. So the continuation of Évoe existence and its expansion makes that this co-creation of values that I'm talking about is a reality. And we have to talk about the platform as well, right? Although Évoe now is leaving the platform slowly, they started with Évoe, or they started in an other platform, but then Évoe came to them and say like, well, do you want to work together? Come to us. And Évoe works with a lot of different cultural projects, but they are very focused on the cultural project. They have a curation. There is a whole assistance, and they pay attention of which project they are putting in their platform, and they have the subscription option, as I mentioned. They also are working with a tax benefit for individuals. Of course, this is based on Brazilian cultural policy and the laws that I was talking about, but still they are innovating in the sense. I haven't seen things like that happening in Europe, but Évoe is doing so, and they have one concept that for me really talks to me, that is that crowdfunding, more than finance, it is about collective development. So this idea that people are collectively developing a project, and I mean Évoe is doing that. Évoe is getting together lots of hands to make this dream come true and expand, and I mean it's quite significant. And Évoe is a remarkable platform, and now they are working with a lot of different cultural institutions and quite renowned theater groups. For instance, they have Inhotim as well, which is a very good contemporary art museum, quite well established, and they are in Évoe, they are doing that. So Évoe is expanding also how they are doing crowdfunding in the sense of going to having big names in their page. And also we have another platform that I wanted to mention, that is Benfeitoria. Benfeitoria from Rio. They are also doing a lot of different stuff. They have this channel of subscription as well. They have the different models that you can have in crowdfunding, and they are really investing in match funding. I don't have a lot of time today to talk about match funding, but with Évoe, for instance, they work with a regional development bank in which for cultural heritage mainly. And then when a project receives X amount of money, the bank comes and double it or triple it. And they are doing the same mechanism of match funding, not with public sphere of bank, but with corporative. So they have Natura, a company, doing the same and focus on especially urban restoration projects. So if they have one unit of money, Natura comes and double it or triple it. And not only the match funding, they are being quite unique, they also have specific channels, in the sense that you have the portals to go on to discover different projects, and they are very much social oriented. One example is the one here that is Elas Periféricas, so something like She Periféricos, so projects in the peripheries of Brazilian cities and Brazil in general. So a place that you can really find where to support entrepreneurs in the periphery areas. And they also, because we are almost in Carnival time, they also have a portal that is for Carnival. So every little small bloquinho, the schools in the streets playing, they have a portal that you can go there and donate. And So this kind of variety and diversity that you see of the different portals, the different matching funding, the tax benefits, is very unique of Latin America context. I'm sorry, more Brazilian context, and it proves that in the sense of crowdfunding market, this structure that Brazilian platforms have developed is more elaborated, if I may, more or stronger than what I see in Europe. And one of the things, of course, is this idea that the platforms are also business themselves. So they have these fees, they have a lot of other things that we have to understand. So when we look at a market that has 10 platforms, and then in Brazil, like around 4 or 5 that are for cultural projects, you understand that this market is quite strong and protected, and they are within a mission to continue and have a good cultural sector. While in Europe, of course, then we have more countries, language differences, and so on. But still, they have more this is a business popping up here and there is legislation that's complex. So, of course, this discussion that I'm bringing in simple terms is way more complex. And if we come to the legislation of crowdfunding and so on, is quite a new area to explore. But it's worth thinking. It's worth thinking what the platforms are doing that is different, why there are less platforms, and how this, like our orchestra being funded in a crowdfunding platform, or started its career, its career is great, but yeah, it's starting its trajectory within digital fundraising. It's quite unique because it's our orchestra. It's a big institution. It requires a lot of resources, and they are managing and they are expanding with this logic of the crowdfunding logic. And then is the question, not maybe the platforms are an actor that not necessarily is always going to be there, but this initiative of the crowdfunding or the collective funding, or better saying, the collective development of project, is something that is worth exploring and looking into more details. So time is running short. I'll just jump for the final considerations. And so in short, I would like to really highlight that I see the crowdfunding in the context of the cultural sector, so the CCCF, as a tool of diverse practice. So you can do a lot of things, align with what you want, align with the function of your activity, your cultural institution, your enterprise. And digitals too are here to stay. So how can we use this in our favor? How, and especially artists that are not very much engaging, maybe this digital universe can offer a way to amplify portfolios as Évoe figured, right? And we need this multi-angle perspective on digital fundraising and how we can use. And if we go to this idea that ultimately is about co-creation of values and diverse values in the diverse context. So how I'm going to create value in the context that I am, how I can use digital fundraising that is in this context, that makes sense in this context, to make a project happen. And I do believe that Évoe really illustrate that, because again, is a core cultural expression and shows that crowdfunding intersects with artistic excellence and is using all this digital practice to foster co-creation and expanding a movement or a institutional project that is changing life, is transforming socio-economic realities, is giving opportunities to marginalized musician undergrad students to have an experience that is unique. And they are educating audience as well. So their transformation of the socioeconomic reality goes way beyond the concert itself. It's about the behind the scene, the education, the snowball effect that they have with all this, who is talking to who, this, all of this provocation that Évoe can create. And again, I believe that Évoe found a way of using the digital spaces to transform realities, and we have to praise them for that. So I have here some reference, some were in the slides, some are just important on my research. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. And I look forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Alice, for a very, very inspiring and illuminating presentation of the case of Évoe and crowdfunding in Brazil, in the Brazilian context. So I have my good colleague and friend, Kim-Marie Spence here, who is giving you a virtual round of applause here. So Kim, you have been moderating the chat and fielding some questions for us. So would you like to get us started with the discussion here? Yeah.
So apologies for the feedback. I am joined by some members of our MA with so it's a bit of a hybrid presentation here. So you're up on a big screen, Alice, and fabulous work. The first question is from Anders himself. Right. Yeah.
Kim, I think you are muted.
You are muted, Kim, so you need to unmute yourself.
Apparently, I can't unmute on so you're on two screens. So the first question is, what kind of other funding has OVO been able to access via their crowdfunding?
So what they did with the monthly subscription revenue, they separated 80% to actually invest on resources to write proposals for the public fund. With the different, because in Brazilian cultural policy, we have the federal, state, the regional, the municipal, and they actually applied for all this instance, and they got some funding. And then, yeah, the funding works in different ways within those laws. So usually when you get or you are approved in a project, you have to go to seek for funding. So you actually go to seek for companies or other sponsors to give you the money that the law allowed you to receive. But they managed to get the project approved, and the project was financed through the crowdfunding platform, or to what they were receiving within the subscription channel. Is that clear?
Yes, I Anders, does that answer your question?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question indeed. But I also see now that we have a very relevant practitioner question in the chat here, which you might want to try and answer.
So particularly from an orchestra here in Belfast, they asked, Sarah Williams said, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen orchestras make when launching crowdfunding campaigns for the first time? And so that's question one. And then are there any emerging trends and lessons you've seen in crowdfunding from outside the classical music sector?
Well, I will be honest, Évoe is the only orchestra that I know that went for a crowdfunding campaign. And I've seen cases of one-off, like for a concert, to help out with some parts of the concert, because again, as you say, Sarah, is a massive structure. So there are some projects that are crowdfunded, but an orchestra having monthly subscription through crowdfunding, in my opinion, in terms of these lessons, is just adapting what a lot of orchestras have, like the friend of orchestras. So the donation that orchestras receive from patrons through a crowdfunding platform. So it's using a traditional practice, but incorporating or taking agency in a way that is digital. And I think this is somehow good in terms of lessons to learn. And crowdfunding outside the classical musical sector, yes, there are plenty. I would say that the classical music is more the exception. And well, I believe that games is a sector that we should look into it, in the sense that the game not only have a lot of proximity with the digital sphere, but also the gamers, so the consumers, are accessing crowdfunding platforms to discover new games. And I haven't seen musicians, for instance, getting new fans that scroll on their platform. So usually, Évoe, for instance, they really use their network, that's personal network, the personal connection, to make the granja happen. But games, no, games are already managing to do this. But yeah, this is about consumer profile and so on. So it's a bit more complex. But yeah, I hope I answer your questions, Sarah.
Sarah is saying that also orchestra might provide your next case.
Ooh, I like that.
I hear a question from Karsten. So to avoid the feedback here, I'll have Karsten ask his question himself. Karsten? All right. Karsten might not be able to speak, so I'll say it. Have there been studies in Brazil on the collaboration between public authorities and crowdfunding platforms? And I think this is particularly in regard to the match funding campaigns.
Yes. So this is quite new. I mean, we have been having this for not more than 5 years, and I haven't seen many studies going on it, especially with the development banks. I've seen reports, so they do their own reports, and there is some sort of control of how the results are turning out. But in terms of academic research, it's something that I look forward actually to start looking in more details. And we have other platforms that are actually wanting to have more collaboration with governments and state governments or things like that. Anders also was there when we talked with a crowdfunding platform from the south of Brazil, and they are looking into that. So I would say that now is in the piloting stage with reports from the industry side, and we need, as academics, to go and ask the questions and go check the projects. So I think we need more studies, that's for sure.
I would add a corollary to Karsten's question. One of the things I was struck by in your presentation was that platforms tend to be ageographic. And the discussion of Évoe and Évoe orchestra speaks to a territorialization or geographization, a linkage with location of platforms that is new, when normally platforms were trying to go in the other direction. So I thought that was actually an interesting addition to the work. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree very much. I think what Évoe did with this, using the cultural policy law that we have to benefit individuals who are donating, it was an insight that other countries could have the same according to their tax policies. So why are we not using, or why crowdfunding platforms are not looking into the tax system and the policy laws and trying to make things work digitally? I mean, we have a lot of opportunities there.
I have another question from Karsten. So there are a lot of questions regarding what this case throws up. So one question was, is there a preference in CCF for donation-based, reward-based, or crowd-sustaining contributions? And have there been equity or lending-based platforms that have come up, particularly investing in new movies? So I think Karsten might be a fellow academic.
Karsten, yeah, we know him from the crowdfunding conference round and always with the creative. So good to see you there. And so one of the things that is very nice of the Latin America platforms, and Brazilian in particularly, is that they allow both reward-based and donation-based. So you can choose, and but I would say that reward-based is mostly chosen because, of course, the benefits that you can offer is also about community building, right? So it's like Évoe does with offering the dinners and the tickets to the concert. So I think they really like this idea that the reward makes the community stronger. So I think I would say that it's definitely more reward. And unfortunately, no, I don't know of any like movie initiative with equity. I know in Norway, actually, they did one with theater, not movie. But I'm pretty sure that if we look in more details and get search going, we're going to find something pretty good. But still, I don't know of any that I can announce here as an example.
We're fortunate also to be joined by the executive director of Évoe, Rafael Alberto. I wonder, Rafael, if you wanted to add anything to the case study as presented by Alice.
Yes, I know that Rafa and Werner is also the conductor and founder. They are there, so I'm very glad that they are there. If they want to, add something, it would be my pleasure.
But while we're waiting for Rafael's response, we have a question from Sakib, who asks, is the crowdfunding campaign able to engage younger audiences for the Évoe? Which was a question I had as well, the audience question.
So the audience question, it would be very nice to actually have inputs from Rafael and Werner. I've been to concerts and I know that they have a very nice way of this sharing the knowledge and making people enthusiastic about the orchestra. So even in the Philharmonic, because I have been to more and they are both musicians of the Philharmonic, I have to say that, Rafa and Werner. There are quite an impressive number of young people in my personal perception. And I think it is very nice. And I believe that Évoe, with their Instagram presence and how they do the reels and the small videos talking about the different instruments, how they know the composers, it's something that makes the users' engagement. I don't know in terms of donation, because of course, young people with their income, then is something that we should explore. And I'm sure that Rafa knows more. And, but yeah. He's saying that the mic is not available.
The mics are not available, but I do think it's interesting that crowdfunding campaign, like something for fundraising, also impacts audience development. And I see that we're running out of time. So thank you, Alice. Thank you, everyone here. And I will return to our chair, Anders.
So I would just like to round this up nicely. We may have had, maybe not have. I will give Alice the floor for the final words, but I just wanted to sort of reach out on behalf of arts management and cultural policy here at Queen's. And thank you very much, Alice, for this very enlightening and very informative presentation. We hope that there will be more work coming out of Latin America and Brazil in particular on crowdfunding. So I hope that you will continue with this case. So I will just let you actually send us off with a message. So the floor is yours, Alice.
Thank you, Anders. It's always a pleasure to share the floor with you, and to Kim and Ali, thank you as well, and all my other colleagues that I saw there. And of course, I want to thank Évoe as well. And I want to say to all the people who are curious about other campaigns and crowdfunding initiatives, especially with orchestra, get in contact with them. Évoe is really open to connections and collaborations. So maybe we can have some Northern Ireland and Brazilian collaborations coming up and things like that. So it would be very nice to see those results coming further. Thank you, Anders.
So Once again, thank you, Alice. And I will end this meeting here just with some information. You have been recorded today, so this presentation will be up later on Arts Management and Cultural Policy at Queen's YouTube channel. So thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Alice, for the presentation, and we wish you a good evening. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anders. Have a good class there. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.